All right. Our team of Liberian journalists, we are fortunate to have of us the former president of the Liberia Council of Churches and also the senior pastor of the New Water in the Desert Apostolic Pentecostal Church, Bishop Kortu Brown. Welcome to the media.
Thank you.
The first Sunday, what was the message to the congregation?
First, we give God the glory that we've come to what we call, of course, the fifth checkpoint in the year, which is the month of May. And now we are in the new month. Today is the first day, January 1. And in this week, we are focused on, Sunday. Next Sunday will be the birth anniversary of the church, the global church, the church that was born in the Book of Acts. So that was part of our focus on today, the commemoration of Pentecost Sunday. And what we said to the church was that they should realize that there is a God in Israel. There's a God in Liberia. There's a God in our families. No matter what we go through, no matter what the challenges are, we should know that, God is real, God exists. And we told them to bless God for four things, that tells us that God is real. One, that God will rebuke those who ignore him in accordance with 2 Kings, chapter 1, verse 1 to 5. Two, I will respond to those who request his intervention, no matter what difficulty they're going through. And you can see the story of Samson when he got, arrested by the Philistines and his eyes were blocked up. And then he was taken, to this public building, to make sport out of him. In Judges 16:28, he cried there that God should give him his last strength. So even in the midst of difficulties, God can still hear us. We still have a God. And then of course, also that no matter what the conditions are, we can still testify about the goodness of God. It's the story of the little girl, the Israelite girl who stayed in the house of Naaman, the captain of the Syrian army, who when she saw her master, as a leopard, was moved her heart. And so she decided to say to the master's wife that in my country there is a man of God that can heal our master. So even though she was a slave, but that condition did not prevent her from testifying that there was a God in Israel. And then finally, I say to them that you also have to tell God thank you, because there are things that God will allow in your life because he wants someone else to have the knowledge of him. That's 1 Samuel 17, verse 46 to 50. When David met Goliath, today the whole earth will know somebody needs a knowledge of God. And somebody needs to know that the weapons they are using to fight, the weapons are carnal, that they cannot supplement for the power of God. So David met Goliath in the valley and defeated him there because he told him the world would know today that there is a God in Israel. So there's a God in Liberia, there's a God in the church, God in our families, and I say to Liberians everywhere that we should trust God, trust him. In this new month, new mercies, we claim favor for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, for our country. And I'm glad that we can come back to, these series. I know a lot of people, we'll be questioning, what happened to the series? Well, this is just part of our own contribution towards the public debate, and trying to help, add our voice, to the issues that are trending in our country. And as citizens. I'm a citizen of Liberia.
In the midst of numerous challenges or circumstances confronting Liberians, are citizens really spiritually growing?
They should. One of the things you learn from the Word of God is that no matter what you go through, you're supposed to trust God. And I like Liberia. They are people of faith. This is an amazing country where even on the football field, they will praise God. In the market places, they will praise God. In the schools, everywhere, in the buses, they will praise God. So there is a sense of faith, I would call it, more Liberians, that they know that God is in control of this country, and they always look up to God. And I think we should always, we have, no matter what the challenges are, we should look up, to God, because God will not let us down. See what Liberia has been through over the last, say, almost 50 years, from the rice riot to the coup in 1980 to all of the crises in the 80s, all the way to the Civil War, the death and destruction, and then to Ebola, and then Corona, and now monkeypox. God has always stood with Liberia. And there are many Liberians who can testify how God delivered them. And they should hold back their testimony. We are a people of faith, and we will always be a people of faith, no matter what the circumstances.
Bishop, for some times now, the Liberia Council of Churches, which you previously served as a president, has been entangled into a reported crisis ranging from the alleged alteration of the council's constitution to suit the seminaries-led leadership. On yesterday, there was also a major happening which was so disturbing both nationally and internationally, where there were concerns being raised by some executives of the council as it relates to the honoring of Speaker Richard Kuhn by the religious leader, particularly the Liberia Council of Churches. What's your take on this?
The LCC is a religious group, yes, but every group has and can have challenges, and I trust the capacity of LCC, I think, to be able to resolve as religious leaders, spiritual leaders, or internal crisis. And I've sat down on some of the, mediation efforts. And it's our hope and prayer that whatever, the crisis, that we are able to resolve it and normalize the Council of Churches so that we all can move together. Now, as pertaining the honor, I've been reflecting on the response, public response, and there are a few things that have come to, me. One, that there is deep love and appreciation for the work of the Liberia Council of Churches, the role the Council of Churches is expected to play in Liberia. I mean, from all you see and hear, you see that people want a group in Liberia that they can always run to in times of crisis, and they want to ensure that that group is balanced. And I think the people at LCC should appreciate that, appreciate the fact that the council believes that this country depends on the Liberia Council of Churches, and that the Council of Churches should do as much as they can to ensure that it continues to play, a national role. Second thing is that the public response to protecting and defending the Constitution, the rule of law, it is amazing to me. Just out of, for example, the recent crisis at the House of Representatives, and the fact that the public will respond to the extent to which you see them respond. You know, lash the border on, you know, some people who think that maybe the honoring of some of the honorees was untimely, but they were also good, you know, honorees. You know, nobody can argue that Kenneth Best doesn't deserve an honor.
So what about
What about Nati Potet? Or the Archbishop, you know, Gabriel Jugwe? Or the ACC General Secretary? Or the WCC President for Africa? So we can understand, you know, I personally can understand, you know, some of the public concerns, and I think that the fact that the public wants the Council of Churches to continue to play its mediatory role within the Liberian society. You know, I think it's a clear message, you know, and the biggest, you know, I think that people, a lot of people would think that some of the honoree was timely, given our recent, you know, history. I get that too. But my biggest takeaway is the fact that the Liberian people have so much confidence in the Council of Churches and they wanted to go the right way. I think it's something that we can ignore.
How do you view the bestowing of honor on the Speaker of the House of Representatives by the Liberia Council of Churches?
Was the Speaker there?
What he was written and he was honored.
Well, the public reaction to some of the honorees is that they don't think it was timely.
What do you think?
Maybe we should have waited, you know. Maybe we should have waited a while. Maybe, maybe. But I think the real message is the esteem to which the public holds the LCC, Liberia Council of Churches, and that's the real message. And I think all of us who are members of LCC should reflect on that and recommit ourselves to ensuring that we don't let the public down, that we continue to play, you know, our role as a religious community in the way that this country continues to benefit, you know, from our ministry in our services, you know, as a church.
Bishop, we managed to receive the program sheet from yesterday's program held by the LCC. There are reports that President Joseph Yoma Bweka was expected to be a special honoree. Do you think it's...
I don't know. I need to check that out. But, you know, President Bweka is the president of Liberia. You know...
Is it unprecedented for the council to honor...
there's always a first time. There's always a first time.
Is it the first time?
It's always a first time. I don't know. I need to reflect on that. But Joe Bweka is president of Liberia, and, you know, he, you know, in the group, he's the president. You know, in the group can. Yes, we what we pray and hope for is that the people of LCC can reflect on the high trust Liberians, you know, hold the LCC to, and that we're able to, you know, reflect, you know, on that. You can say that, for example, the Council of Churches cannot say recognize the president of Liberia. He is the president, you know. Maybe the way you do it, you know, matters, but the president of Liberia, you know, is the president, and at the General Assembly and opening, you know, ceremony, of course, you know, you could. But, you know, to me, the real, you know, what I see in all of this is that we can learn lessons from, you know, where we are.
Did you manage to establish why official communications was sent to the two leaders, the president and the speaker, to be honored by the LCC?
Communications.
The reasons.
I'm a former president. I will not know all the details. You know, I'm not, you know, so, and I'm not doing these public series on behalf of the Council of Churches. These are my personal reflection on, you know, national affairs. So, you know, I don't know all that went into the processing of all of this. But I can say, you know, it's for the public.
Okay, we now go to the crisis within the LCC. There has been concern as it relates to the constitution.
There have been a lot of efforts. And listen, there have been a lot of efforts to try to bring harmony to the Council of Churches, which I think is good. Some people have made good efforts, you know, towards that. We hope that if the crisis is not resolved, that those efforts will continue, you know, by God's grace, so that, because Liberia needs a Council of Churches. Even the churches need a Council of Churches. The Council of Churches is this platform that is supposed to promote witness, advocacy, and service. This is, you know, the role and the place of the Council of Churches in our national life. So we need a Council of Churches. It's a big platform. It's a global platform. It's a platform Liberia can and should benefit from. We should do all we can to keep it and protect it, you know, for the good of the country.
With these embarrassing happenings now within the LCC, can Liberians actually look out to the council as the lone voice in the wilderness in terms of advocacy?
I'm speaking to you now. The churches will always speak out. The churches will always stand up, you know, for what is right. The churches, you know, in Liberia will always stand up for what is right. And right now, as a part of the team that have tried to mediate, you know, in whatever, you know, concerns there may be in the Council of Churches, you know, I know that the council is able to resolve, you know, whatever, you know, concerns there may be, and as church people, that's something we should do easily. So yes, I don't think that the public should lose faith in the Council of Churches. I think that, you know, the Council of Churches is able to rise up and, you know, play a role. The churches are a strong voice. The churches are a strong partner in Liberia. The churches will not go away. The churches are active in education, in health, in community service. There's so much, you know, been done to be able to, you know, help push this country forward. And I can tell you, for example, that if it were not because of the churches, that, you know, Liberia may not be able to be standing the way it's standing. The churches have been strong partners to the government of Liberia, and I think that will continue, and we should commend that. And wherever they are weakness, I'm sure we are able to, you know, to engage them and overcome them, you know, for the good, you know, of everyone. And I think that's what's, you know, is happening by God's grace.
What is your take on Liberia's bid for a non-permanent seat at the UN Security Council?
Anything that exposes Liberia, anything that helps Liberia to be able to fulfill some of her responsibilities, you know, as a country, I think it's good. You know, I think that, you know, that Liberia vying for a seat at the United Nations Non-Security Council, non-permanent members. Yeah, I think it's good. You know, somebody asked me over the weekend, is Liberia running against anybody? I said, I don't know. I need to find them, because yes, Sierra Leone has been holding this seat, you know, I think for the last 1 year or so, and they are our neighbors. So I think it'll be a good thing if Liberia gets the seat. And personally, you know, I support it. You know, I support it. I think that anything that promotes our country. Listen, we can have disagreements on several, you know, other issues, social issues, political issues, economic issues. But when it comes to the promotion of our country, that's why I said before, even to, you know, previous government, anything that promotes our country, we cannot withhold public support for such initiative. I think that this effort was started by the We Are government, you know, I understand, and the Baka government came in and took it on, and so far I think they done well. They done well, we should encourage them, and we should hope that there is a clear, program of action. Normally they say Lone Star can party, the party can be strong. When you go for the game now, when time for the game now. So we hope that we have a clear plan of action, for what we want to do. If God was to allow us to, become a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council, which I think hasn't happened for I'm over 60 years or so. So just putting Liberia way up there on the UN Security Council, I think it's a good idea. It's a good feeling, I think. And I think we all should, we should support it, and we should, wait with high anticipation, for the results.
Bishop, it is about approximately 1 year, 6 months now since the Unity Party led government into power. What is your take? The standard of living, the brother.
You should be telling me. You're the journalist. You're the one.
I'm sure people are telling you.
You're going around. You should be telling me. In 1.5 years.
You see
now,
the expression on the faces of your congregation. What's the overall expression?
Listen,
on the faces of your congregation.
We said before, 6 months ago, 1 year ago, that Liberia needs to address the bread and butter issues. There's no denying of that. We need to address the bread and butter issue. There are many Liberians who, who are still challenged. And when you go around, you listen to people. And of course, you hear from the government, people about the efforts they are making and all of that. And of course, you can't deny all the, the explanations. But you can also deny that the bread and butter issues need to be addressed in Liberia. We need to address them. We need to ensure that, in a more organized way, in a more structural way, we need to get ministries acting together, on some of the themes, because some of these issues, the Chris Court, the Court across, and certain people are able to act on some of the issues, and so yes, I think the bread and butter issue, I think it's still a challenge, for the country, and I think this is something that we need to, address. Think about, for example, we hope we do something more in a more formidable way. This August, and the last time I was talking about the plight of, single mothers, female heads of household, and the indication that the last census gave us, that you have about 34% of the households in Liberia, which almost about 1.2 million, who are headed by females. And then I said that I'm sure you would analyze that, you will find out that, that would be different categories, of households. Some of them abandoned by fathers who failed to take up their responsibility, and some, maybe deceased fathers, all of that. So we're challenged. We're challenged. Here on the campus area, we would feed about 500 children. So we know the children come from the community. So we know that also that, many parents, would think that it's a lot that needs to be done to be able to help people economically, reach their goal.
If we were asked to proffer recommendations to the Liberian government in terms of addressing the bread and butter issues, what would be those recommendations?
That they put down a clear plan with clear actors, coordinated, and our plans review every 3 months. You understand? What is it we want to do in this sector? For example, the bread and butter issues, and who are the actors? The actors should not just include government. This is a national issue. Should not just include government officials. Because, for example, a government official will go to the president and say, Mr. President, everything all right. Everything is all right and you are doing well. But if you have other, stakeholders in such intervention, then of course it help enrich those discussions, the review processes. So yes, something of the sort where we set goals, we set objectives, and we set activities, and we determine what we want to do in this given period, how many percent we want to reach, and how we want to do it, and then we have this review process. So every 3 months, something. It's like the Zogo problem. How do you address it? You don't address it just by holding press conference. You don't know. There's a series of efforts, and when you go to the Ministry of Health is making some, some efforts. There are other private citizens also who are making some efforts, and we need to bring all of this together in a regular intervention, where a regular review process, we all can see where are we, where do we want to go, how are we getting there, and how do we monitor, how we get there, by God's grace.
Bishop, what is your thought regarding the influx of Burkina Faso in the southeastern region of the country and other part of Liberia? What is your advice to the government of Liberia?
Why are they coming to Liberia?
We are young enough, some they have fun.
For economic reasons, for political reasons, for what reason? So first, I think the government needs to really ascertain why they're coming, how many are they, right now, I understand we don't have UNSC in Liberia. UNSC has closed down offices in Liberia, and I think moved to the Ivory Coast. So, how many are they? How many Burkina Faso you're talking about? So I think the government needs to. Where is the HPRC? Where is the Ministry of Internal Affairs? Where are the immigration folks? To me, they need to look into all of this and advise the country, on what it is and what needs to be done to be able to address these concerns. If you got people that come into your country and come and sit down somewhere, you should know, and then you should have a plan, and to be able to do they want to go back home or they want to stay in Liberia? So we don't know. How do we, but they are West African brothers.
Do you share the view of others that the presence of these Burkina Faso in southeastern Liberia has the propensity to threaten the security of the country?
You can't deny or accept that or confirm whatever until you are able to. I think there's a need for, if the government has done any assessment, on these people, to let the public know. Let the public know, who are they? Where do they come from? Why are they coming? How many of them have come? And what needs to be done to be able to address their plight? Do they want to go back home? Because right now we hear Burkina Faso is doing much better. And if Burkina Faso is doing much better, who knows? They may be interested in going back home, and the rest of that. So it's a hard question, because they are West African brothers, and as West African, we're not supposed to discriminate. But at the same time, we need to know. When I say we, I mean the public needs to know what's happening and what the government is doing to be able to address that. And if Burkina Faso, in my personal opinion, you hear Burkina Faso is doing very well, and so maybe the people who are in the bushes may not know that. Maybe some functionary of government to tell them that their country is doing much better, and to encourage them maybe to go back home. But we're not supposed to drive a West African away with high costs, because we're all in the same region.
What of all recently ensued between Bomin County Senator Edwin Melvin Snow and the government of Liberia over comments attributed to Senator Snow that he wants the Burka-led government as well as the president to fail, since the fact he has a presidential ambition. How do you make of his sections?
Yes, part of this.
Yeah.
It's 2029.
What do you make of his section and the response from the government?
It's 2029. unfortunately, it's playing so soon, playing out so soon. And yeah, and by the time I'm sure this year ends and we get into 2026, Liberia will be saturated with maybe nothing else but only about 2029. I think most of that is about 2029, about, and second thing is, people should debate. Liberia should debate. Let them debate, which government is doing well, which government not doing well, what people are doing, what we're not doing, who wants to, be the next government, who don't want to be the next government. And that's part of the debate. The Liberians debate, and
does it all go well for a statesman to hope for the failure of a government or the president? Is it patriotic?
When you say to fail, for the government to fail, then you have to look at the consequences. I don't know the statement. So I can't be definitive about the statement. But if you say that the government should fail, that means that Liberians should be affected, by, so I don't know, is that what he said?
Yes, clarify.
What did he say?
He said that was exactly what he said. The government should fail and not Liberia.
He said the government should fail, or the government should have one term.
The government should fail.
Okay, I've not heard that, so I need to listen to that, listen to that. But to me, I think it's just part of this, and people, listen, the way I see Liberians, it looks like you love elections more than you love governance.
How do you think so?
Because all the blah blah, all the blah blah. So for example, you just had an election, 1.5 years ago, and now you're trying to find ways to help, bring some solutions to challenges that we face. But you can see right now, all across the political spectrum, when you're listening, it's largely about 2029. And it's 4 years away. 4 years away. I said to someone recently, and they said they were organizing something, a political party or so. I said, but you just won the other election, you didn't deliver yet. Now you're talking about another political party. So, Liberians just, love all this blah blah. Every day you listen to the talk show, it's about national elections, and this is why I believe it's important, for example, that the government leads from the middle to be able to, attract stakeholders or persuasion, so that together we can move this, country forward together. That I pray that Liberians will refocus. Let's refocus. Let's find points of convergence. Let's find points, areas where we can enhance this, political dialogue, and not just on the 2029 elections. And unfortunately, which is what I see mostly right now, that this country has been driven into. And I fear that by the time we get in 2026, whoa, if it's 2027, it will be like the election already going on in 2027.
What do you think is taking so long for Liberia to progress, to be on par with other countries across the world?
Lack of consistency. Lack of national unity. Some people have argued that Liberia does not have a consistent national plan of action. That whichever government it is, right now, Ghana is trying to do a plan for their country that will go beyond any one government. I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing. That we do a plan that goes beyond any one government, and that plan should include stakeholders from all spheres of life, so that, they can protect it, they can argue for it, They can, so that when one government comes in, that plan is already there. Because every time, for example, when Taylor was here, or when Doe was here, there's something about the Green Revolution. And then when Taylor comes, something about Vision 2020, Vision 20 what?
2030.
2030. Then Mr. Salif comes, is what? PRS, Poverty Reduction Strategy. And then Mr. Wiakam is the what? The Pro-Poor Agenda. And then President Boga comes is the Rescue Mission. I think that we were able to harmonize, some of our national programming. It will help. It could help a lot. Then, the way we're doing it currently, where everybody, you come with your own program, and when your program, when your tenure is over, another man comes in, come with your own program. It's an unnecessary competition. It's an uncalled for competition. We need to find a way to be able to, have a national plan of action that we all can buy into. It doesn't matter what political party you're from, what religious group, what society group, what, your ethnicity is, that we have one plan of action, that we can always review as a country. It doesn't matter whether you're in power, you're out of power, but you're part of that revision process. I think if we did that, if we saw that, and if we got that done, I think it will help Liberia a lot. We'll not be going back and forth, back and forth and back and forth.
Okay, Bishop, let's come to this issue of the increased involved violence, domestic violence, Liberian killing Liberia, lawlessness, husband killing wife killing husband, several parts of the country. Almost every day, weekly, one hear of news of a death on to the radio. And this may be your attention.
Yeah, I mean, every time I hear about, what you call it? What kind of death?
Domestic violence,
whatever,
violence.
Yeah. Whatever. I think it's just sad for Liberia. Why is there increasing domestic violence? Why is there increasing, mob violence? It said that the rule of law is not serving its purpose. So it's important, for example, for our public officials to obey the law, to be seen to be obeying the law, or the courts to be seen to be, rendering justice, yes. Or all of us to be seen saying the truth, so that ordinary people can have confidence, in what we say, and that because of that, when we say it, they believe it, and it can help to undermine mob justice, domestic violence. But all of that, is not enough reason why we should perpetrate mob violence or domestic violence, in the country. When you take away somebody's life, it's just one life, When you kill somebody for whatever reason, you are stopping someone's whole future. You're affecting a whole family. Some of the people, that person may be their only breadwinner. That whole family might get shattered. And we hope we can return to the rule of law, to the courts. When somebody do something to you that you don't like, that you go to the court, and complain, and whatever it is, whatever people think about the courts. But it's better to go to the court and complain than to be, fighting out there, doing violence, and the rest of that. And violence is sometimes, it takes on different form, and it affects us. Properties are destroyed, public property are destroyed. Then you need money again to rebuild those, the facilities. It doesn't help us. And I hope that, that Liberians can all work together. In the communities, for example, they used to have these peace committees. These peace committees could help to enhance, conciliation, reconciliation or mediation in the communities. I think we need to more emphasize, these kinds of interventions, so that we undermine mob violence, we undermine domestic violence, in our community. And I think also that the courts need to, as much as possible. I became a fan of the Supreme Court as a result of the you know, the crisis in the House of Representatives. So, you know, I have a low soft spot, you know, for the Supreme Court, you know, that it's possible that we can dispense justice here. And I think we should.
None of those has been settled at the national legislature, particularly the House of Representatives. What will be your recommendation to lawmakers to avoid
That they work together.
the reoccurrence?
They respect one another. They work together. They respect one another. Your lawmaker, your comrades, your colleagues, you're all one. You're called to serve the public good. They should focus on that. Focus on how we can move Liberia forward. Listen, the other day we were talking about, in our Alliance Public City, we were talking about the Ministry of Labor and the legislature doing something about the concessions and blah, blah, blah. And in the last few weeks, I've heard, you know, a lot of movement, some movement towards that, you know, and I think we should commend that. We should commend the fact that, you know, the Ministry of Labor was asked to do what? You know, the listing of what? Foreigners, quote unquote, who hold positions in Liberia that Liberians could occupy. Because here we have an employment issue. You will say unemployment issue. And sometimes some of the problem we have here may be because, you know, there are limited opportunities. So the people in the House of Representatives and the House of Senate, they have a lot to do. They have a lot to do. I think that I think they should increase their intervention on, you know, addressing all these labor issues, some of these social issues, so that we help undermine some of the unnecessary, you know.
Do you share the view of others that representatives and senators can somehow be held liable or responsible for some of the constraints or challenges confronting vast majority of Liberians?
In the context that sometimes I think they get confused about what to do, yes, and sometimes the kind of laws that you expect to pass may not be passed, yes, and that sometimes some of the revision that you expect, for example, concession, you know, agreements, and those kind of, you know, the other day, and Senator Finley was talking something about revenue sharing, that maybe it was time for Liberia to move away from all these MDAs, you know, where, you know, people give you, wow, royalty, to one where you share, you know, the revenue. You own certain percentage, and the company owns certain percentage. You know, you run the mine, and you get Liberia own. Liberia will decide what to do with their own. Maybe we need to do more there. Maybe
we encourage more investors.
Maybe you don't know until you try. There's always the first time, they say, you know. So maybe we should try something, but we can't be like this. We have to find a way to address the concerns of our citizens. At least we have to be seen to be trying to find a way to address some of the concerns of our citizens. For example, on the issue of, you know, map justice, the issue of domestic, you know, violence, and hard men, you know, during the administration, you know, I stood up very strongly, you know, on those issues. And now I understand, you know, you still have incidents of such, and we shouldn't countenance that. We should always speak out against any attempt by anyone to take the life of anybody. We should always stand against.
President Joseph Yumabwaka returned from Nigeria recently, where he traveled to attend the 50th anniversary celebration of ECOWAS. He crash landed partially in Liberia. How do you see the safety or security of the president?
Is that what it said?
It was reported that the aircraft.
I thought the airport said that there were potholes, you know.
There was a partial crash, as reported.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe
Maybe
the airport needs to we need to know what happened. You know, some of these questions sometimes they are like, you know.
Well, you heard the story.
Yes, you read all kinds of things. You know, the government said one thing, the BBC is saying another thing. So that's why information sharing is very important. And sometimes we emphasize this, you know, timely information sharing is of importance because it helps undermine some of the hearsays and sometimes, sometimes, some of the things people may say may not be true, but because people don't have the facts, they don't know the real story. So right now, I really don't know the real story, because the government, the airport authority says one thing, and then of course later on there were other reports. So what's the real story?
How do you think the president's safety can be guaranteed in terms of traveling? There were reports that the plane
First and foremost, it begins
usefulness.
with knowing what happened, because we know what happened with this incident. Then it helps to inform us on what needs to be done to be able to address such concern. The president of Liberia should always be safe. The president of Liberia should always travel safely and return safely. It's a very critical position.
Do you think it's time for Liberia president or Liberia to now have a half or private plane for its president?
Private plane?
Yes. Do you buy the idea?
I don't know.
President flying private jets. Do you support this idea?
You want to buy a plane for the president in his city at the airport?
Perhaps taxpayers.
I don't know. I don't know whether it's feasible right now with all the economic crisis we have on our hands. I don't know. Listen, when you're a public servant, one of the things you are asked to do is to make sacrifice in the interest of the public. And I think this is critical. And for example, I always say the difference between we religious people and the political people is that they get elected to serve the public. We don't get elected. We say we are called by God to serve the public. And so all of us in the public space have responsibility and must make sacrifices to ensure that we can serve our people. And sometimes it just requires that some things we do, some things we don't do, especially when they're not appropriate. Right now, the economic situation with many Liberians being challenged, maybe somewhere in the future, I don't think it's probably feasible right now.
Okay, Bishop, let's just briefly switch to the issue you know very well, just as I do. Some time ago, the government imposed a 1-year ban on traditional schools. Your home county of Bapolo, it was reported that traditional school was still going on, taking these children of school-going age.
Let them play, allow the children to go to school. Let them allow them, way back, the traditional school were doing a vacation period. I think the children need to learn about the culture, of the people they come from, the places where they were born, whatever. But they need to go to school. They need to go to school. They need to be educated. They need to prepare to lead this country, to lead their communities. They need to prepare to make themselves better. And one of the ways we do that effectively is to go to school. So we just encourage and we appeal to the traditional leaders and the Ministry of Internal Affairs to please, without violence through dialogue and negotiation, engage the traditional people so that the children can go to school, because it's in the interest, of Liberia.
It's just been 2 years now since the inception of the Unity Party-led government.
You asked me that question before.
President Joseph Yumamboeka. The question now is, who do you think are the performers and underperformers in government?
Oh, that's a big topic. That will be the next series. That's a big topic. I need to do some research to know who are they, because I'm sitting way out here in Breville, may not know what's happening in other areas, more in depth. So I don't think it would be appropriate to say that, to just pass judgment on people who I may not know what they're doing. Even though I may have some idea about what is been done in some areas, even if it's just
you still think or feel that there are still Judases still around? Are the Judases still around?
When you have a board and that boat shakes, there may be a Jonah. When you have a group and you have people who betray the group, there may be a Judas. But you have to check yourself. You have to check yourself. Sometimes you want to do something, but then you need to ask why it's not been done. You know, you become president, you form a team. And they say that team serves at your will and pleasure. But the team is supposed to implement your agenda. Periodically, you're supposed to be able to do your own personal assessment. You know, of whether or not the team is living up to your expectation, whether your agenda is being, you know, it's been implemented. And that's where we are. And if not, why? Is it because it's a Jonah or a Judas or who? Or who? So that's up to President Wakai to determine. But you know, the story about this American girl, Helen Keller, who, when she was born at the age of 12, lost all her senses, 5 senses. But she still went on to graduate from high school and to go to college. You know, at the time it's Radcliffe College, the female college of Harvard University. And Helen went, you know, all over the U.S. and other areas as a great public speaker. And one time she was asked, what is worse than being blind? And she said, losing your vision. You should always fight not to lose your vision. Because your vision is your inner sight. I don't care how dark your room is. When you enter your room, you know where your bed is. Because your vision is alive. So it's important that we don't lose our vision. We are leaders in the public square, and we keep our vision alive. And right now, like I heard somebody say the other day, and I think it was important that when we do all the major things, for example, the infrastructure and all of that, but then we have to also address the concerns of ordinary Liberian, what you refer to as the bread and butter issue. You know, caring for the poor, feeding the hungry, you know, addressing the plight of young people who are challenged, ensuring that children can go to school, you know, and we commend the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Finance for the arrangement with the World Bank to build 100 schools. Let's ensure that when those schools are built, that they are facilitated, that their teachers, they are facilitated that will be able to enhance learning. Let's ensure that, you know, even the ones that exist, by God's grace, you know, challenges everywhere, but we have to ensure that we can get that done. So yes, you know, the captain of that ship in the book of Jonah was the one who went looking for Jonah. He went looking for who is the man in the ship who is responsible for this boat not being stable. The captain of the ship. The captain of this ship is President Wakai. He's the one who is supposed to ensure that he can find the person who is making the boat not to be stable. 1, 2, the man who told Judas that you betrayed me with a kiss was his master. You're kissing me and doing something different. So is the master responsible to find out who the Judas is? So thank you. I praise, you know, with Liberia doing this Pentecost, you know, season. We're hoping that we can do all we can as Liberia to keep the peace, keep the unity, promote reconciliation, promote peaceful coexistence. We need to do that. We need to promote peaceful. It benefits us. It's in our interest to promote peaceful coexistence. It doesn't serve us well when we do not promote peaceful. We should never play politics with that. we should stop playing politics with our obligation to ensure that we live in peace as Liberians. We need to live in peace here because it's the only way we can develop, this place. So thank you. God bless you, and we pray that Liberia can win the UN Security Council, non-permanency, and so Liberia can rejoice this week. Woo! We got it. God bless you.
Bishop Kortu Brown is the former president of the Liberia Council of Churches. He's also the founder and senior pastor of the New World Story United Apostolic Pentecostal Church. My name is Liberias Johnson, and thanks to you for watching.